To use the Graphical Display Editor tool in PCM 600, we'll first go over to PCM and open it. Once PCM is open, we'll go over to our project and expand it until we get to our relay, which we'll right-click on and select Graphical Display Editor. The Graphical Display Editor tool is used to represent a single-line diagram of the system that your relay is protecting, create an interface for the control part, monitor the voltage and current, and calculate values such as sequence components and power. Once the Graphical Display Editor tab has opened, you'll observe that you have a symbol library, a display window with your display pages, and drop-down menus to edit your symbols. As you can observe, the symbol library is right now in IEC, but since this Graphical Display Editor tool is being used in America, we'll change it from IEC to ANSI. Next, you'll observe above the Graphical Display Editor tab that you have a toolbar, which consists of multiple commands to assist you in creating your single-line diagram in your Graphical Display Editor. So first we'll go to the Read Display Configuration from IED command. By selecting this command, we will read the display configuration data already stored in the IED. Once you read from the IED, it will overwrite the information that you already have on PCM, which is what we want to do in this case, so we'll select yes. Once PCM is done reading the display configuration data from the IED, we'll go back up to our toolbar and observe the Add Display Page command. By using this command, we can add display pages to our display window. We'll add 2 display pages, and then go to the right of our Add Display Page command, and observe the Remove Display Page command. By selecting this command, we'll now delete Display Page 5. By selecting Yes, Display Page 5 will now be deleted. Next, we'll observe how to insert symbols onto your display page to create a single line diagram. So first, we'll go over to the Connections tab. To insert symbols onto our display page, we first have to left click and select on the symbol, and then drag and drop it onto our display page. And then once again left clicking and then dragging and dropping the symbol onto the display page. We'll then select the junction symbol for the middle of our bus bar. Next, we'll observe another one of our commands, which is the rotate left and rotate right command, which gives us the ability to rotate our symbols left or right. So we'll go up to our toolbar after selecting our symbol and select the rotate left command until we have rotated our symbol the way that we'd like to. Next, we'll do the same thing to create our second bus bar. Next, we'll add 2 breaker symbols to our single line diagram by going to the switchgear tab, then left clicking on the breaker symbol and dragging and dropping it onto our display page. And then doing the same for our second breaker. Next, we will link our symbols together by going up to our toolbar and selecting on the Graphical Display Editor, and then going to Link. As you'll observe, there are now circles for each of the symbols, which you can left click on and drag to another circle to connect one symbol to another symbol, and then continue by doing this to every one of the symbols that you'd like to connect. Now that we're done drawing our single line diagram, we will also add 2 buttons to control our breakers that we've just drawn on our single line diagram. By going to Texts and selecting Select Button. By left clicking and dragging and dropping, just as we did for our other symbols. We can give them an association by then right clicking, going to select Input Signal, and then associating it with the function block. By making the associations, we can now control the breakers with the function blocks. Although, we need to engineer logic with these function blocks to allow this to work. So we'll go back to our first display page, which consists of a pre-made single line diagram with the correct buttons that are engineered with the correct logic using the application configuration. So if we select on this display page, we'll now observe a single line diagram which consists of all the logic so that it operates correctly. So we can go to the application configuration, right clicking on the relay and selecting application configuration, and then going back to the display editor. We'll then go to one of our buttons and select on it, and then right click on it. and go to select input signal and observe that it's connected to VSGGIO at position 2. We'll then go back to the application configuration, right click and select find and type in VSGGIO and select find and find the instance number of 2 for that function block. By selecting it, we can now observe the logic that has been engineered for that single line diagram to operate correctly. We'll now exit out of the application configuration and go back to display page 4. We can also observe in our toolbar that we have multiple commands to assist us while we're drawing our single line diagram. The first command we'll look at is the pan command. By selecting on this command, we can now move our display page in whatever position we'd like it to be in while we're drawing our single line diagram. Now we'll go back to the select command and also observe that another command we have is the show grid command. By unselecting this command, you'll observe that now our display page no longer has a grid. Since the grid assists us in drawing our single line diagram, it is recommended to keep your grid. So we'll select on it again. To the right of our show grid command, we'll also observe the snap to grid command, which assists us in placing our symbols in a neat manner. For example, if we unselected on the snap to grid command, you could now select on one of your objects and move it wherever you'd like to, and it does not have to be in any specific order. But if we then reselect on the snap to grid command, you'll observe that you get a warning sign, since the graphical display editor tool will predefine where the symbol is depending on the grid lines. So we'll select yes, and now it is centered between the grid lines. So we'll move it back to where we had it before. The next command we'll look at is a zoom in and zoom out command. This command makes it possible to either zoom out on your display page or zoom in on your display page to assist you again in drawing your single line diagram. Next we'll move on to our drop down menus to edit our symbols. As you can observe in our drop down menus for our symbols, if you'd like to change the link line width, you can go to your drop down menu and observe that you can change the link line width from 1 to 5. It's at 2 right now, and we'll keep it at that width. If we'd like to put some IED text font on our single line diagram, we can select one of our breakers, and then go to the Object Properties window, and select Name, and then type in BRK1. And now as you can observe, we have given it a name. If we don't want the name to be positioned on the right side, or the east side of the symbol, we can go back to the Object Properties window, and look at name position, and go to the drop down menu and select west. And now the name of your breaker is on the left side or the west side. Also in the Object Properties window, you can go to the Input Signals command and associate a function block to the breaker. So we'll select SCWI1. Then we'll go to our breaker 2 and select the Object Properties window and give it the name BRK2 and change the name position to west, and go to Input Signals and associate it to SCWI3. This can also be done for your select buttons by selecting on your button and going to Object Properties and giving it a name. For this one, we'll give it the name of SB1 and put it in the position of north, and do the same for our second select button. And since we haven't given it an input signal, we'll also give it an input signal of VSGGIO30. Now, once you're done drawing your single line diagram and engineering the logic for that single line diagram in the application configuration, you'll go to the Write Display Configuration to IED command. Once you select on this command, you'll write all the information on PCM onto your IED. By selecting yes, now you're writing display configuration data to your IED.